Hello, everyone. We are so fortunate today. We have with us Dr. Charlotte Hughes Huntley. She's the CEO and principal consultant at Dr. C.H. Huntley, LLC, and we're talking about careers in public health and social entrepreneurship today. If you're interested in public health, you certainly don't want to miss this episode, so stick around.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Please support the sponsors who made this episode possible, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd and GoodCrowd.School. Charlotte, welcome to the show.
Hi, Devin.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you very much for joining us. It's exciting to meet you face-to-face, if not in person. And, thank you very much for making time for us to be
Absolutely.
on our show.
I'm excited to be here.
Now, you've got your own podcast, your own consultancy, and a lot of the time, the energy that you spend goes into helping other people to find careers in the public health space. Now, you've got your own PhD and a master's of public health. I mean, you're a big deal. You're all that in a bag of chips, as we say. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and made that transition from super student to entrepreneur.
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know that I was aware of the transition as it was happening. Actually, part of the transition took place as I just struggled to sort of move from, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do with my PhD, and I had already completed a master's in public health, and a little bit of frustration because where I was working, they weren't nearly as excited about all this newfound energy I had and this new knowledge of public health. They were a structure where everything was done the same way that they had always done it. You don't ask questions, you just keep going along. And I was like, but wait a minute, there's a great new way we can do this. And they weren't nearly as excited as I was. So,
Yeah.
that was a big part of the transition because I realized I really had a choice. I could conform, for lack of a better phrase, or I could sort of find my own way. And I worked too hard to get to that point to just sort of sit in a corner and start counting down the time till retirement. So I really decided that I didn't know what the next steps really looked like. I just knew one step at a time, but I knew I was going to do what I set out to do many, many years before that.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, as you have developed your practice and work to help other people, tell us a little bit about now what you're doing to help other people in your practice, with your podcast, et cetera.
Sure. I'm the host and producer of the Public Health Epidemiology Careers podcast. And my initial steps, honestly, were just me responding to questions because people would send questions to me all the time, especially on LinkedIn. Well, how did you get into the field of public health? Or how did you become an epidemiologist? And all these questions, how did you do this? So I started a little small blog where I could sort of a community to kind of respond. But I kept getting the same questions over from that. If these out and asking questions, there are probably so many more people that had the questions but didn't know who to, reach out to. And I'd already been a fan of podcasts. So I thought that would be a great way. I just started a podcast and I could just start with the questions I'm commonly receiving and providing responses and just being myself. Because at that point, I was really happy with the work that I was doing. I had moved into a place where, I was doing what I really wanted to do, the type of work. So I was genuinely thrilled at that point. And so when people would ask the questions, they were getting all my energy and enthusiasm, and it was really starting to attract more and more people. So the podcast picked up great momentum. And over time, I realized I had to expand beyond the podcast because I couldn't answer all of the questions or I couldn't go as in-depth as I wanted to. But I bring other people on the show to kind of give a demonstration of the different ways that you could use your degree in public health. And every time I did that, it only encouraged more questions, which wasn't bad. But I began to work more closely in coaching and people that wanted to work a little bit more closely with me, just helping them do the same thing that I had done, really, kind of making your own path.
Do you continue to do work directly in the field of global health?
I absolutely do.
So tell us a little bit about that work.
Okay. I work as an epidemiologist, and I focus on, and as an epidemiologist, there's so many different directions. The field of public health is broad, but epidemiology focuses on the patterns of disease and how it affects populations of people. And they could be locally to your area, it could be gender population, it could be a racial or ethnic group, or in different countries. So I focus on incidence and prevalence of disease. So how many people have a certain condition within a certain country and within a certain age group, and particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, because, as most people know, it takes years and years, 10 years or more to develop a new drug. So they're really, the big pharma industry is really interested in where the sick people are and what our estimates or projections of where they may be in 5-10 years, so that they can make really good, solid decisions about where to invest their time and money into, creating new drugs. So that's primarily what I do as an epidemiologist.
That's important work. Are you following the Ebola crisis in the DRC right now?
Somewhat. I focus mainly on chronic disease, and mostly my specialty area is central nervous system diseases. So epilepsy, any neurological conditions, and a few with infectious disease. I do research a little bit about hospital-acquired infections because I do have a background in healthcare, so I gravitate to that topic as well.
I see. Well, it's such an important field. I'm really excited to sort of get to know you, and hope you'll be a resource for me as I need help learning and understanding public health issues in the years that come. As anyone who follows my show knows, I've been following and kind of focused on polio eradication for a long time. But I'm hoping in the not too distant future we won't have to talk about that anymore, except as a historical thing. But tuberculosis kills more people than anything else every year. AIDS is a close second, and of course then malaria is still killing 400,000 people a year. Big problems in public health. What drew you to public health originally?
Originally, it was, I would say, my family, without realizing that it was public health. And when I interview people, a lot of us that end up in public health kind of stumble upon public health. I was in healthcare, as I mentioned, and I was really educated. I've watched diabetes and complications from diabetes impact my family growing up. And I've had relatives die far too early, too young, and suffer from the complications of controlled diabetes. So that was really catching my attention early on. And I got a little frustrated because in healthcare, it's one patient at a time, and that's very important. But in public health, we can focus on populations of people. So to me, that was a bigger impact, and that was right up my alley. So I think if I can do something to really help, my family and my community, and then I live in the southeastern region of the United States, where the American Diabetes Association calls us the diabetes belt. We have a much higher prevalence of diabetes. So, my problems that I care about are big. So I needed to be in public health where I could make, I had to go big to help, really help my people.
What are you most proud of having accomplished, Charlotte?
I would really say unboxing myself, having the courage to break out of what is maybe a traditional path, or feeling a little boxed in, like I described earlier, feeling that I had to kind of conform. Having broken out of that and really spreading my wings has allowed me to have such a much bigger impact on populations that I care about, whether it's inspiring others to do the same thing, or to really help not just my family, but my community in the region and so forth. So that's really the thing that I think has made the biggest difference for me.
Excellent. Now, what's the most important lesson you've learned since you've launched your public health career?
I would say courage. I think the courage to stand out, the courage to speak up, the courage to be excited about what you do. It's not that you're excited, I'm excited about disease, but excited about being able to make a difference and have an impact. In some ways, people get tired of hearing people say that, oh, you want to change the world, where I literally wanted to change the world. I just realized I couldn't do it by myself. So the next best thing was to inspire as many people as I could to really get into what they were passionate about so that collectively we could really make a difference.
As you look at your outreach work, your podcast and your blog, what are you seeing in terms of results? How do you think about your impact and the difference you're making there?
Oh, man. I tell you, every day someone reaches out to me and says something really positive. Sometimes it's just that they're really moved by my presence, the fact that they either it's maybe the representation, being a woman in a field that, standing out, or being an African-American woman standing out. And sometimes it's just having the voice. I had recently a young man reached out to me. He's from the UK. I live in the US. And he had some of his undergraduate training in the US, and he now lives in the UK, and he's working on his doctorate, and he had all these questions. He told me he had listened to every single podcast, and I'm up to 95. And it's once a week. Wow. So every single podcast I had ever published. And I mean, he could really talk about what I spoke in those lessons. And I set up a meeting with him and we talked. And then he told me within a week, it inspired him to just take action that he didn't even know he had it in him. And he's already started his own health promotion business, and he's targeting populations that he cares about. And he said, I don't know. He said, you're a force to be reckoned with. So that blows me away, whether it's the simple message or I actually get a chance to hear from someone that's saying that I'm doing this. That really makes my day.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that a little bit, although I don't get positive notes every single day. So I congratulate you. You're doing it right. Charlotte, what is your superpower?
I would have to say my communication. I genuinely enjoy connecting with people. I love to hear about what people are doing or what they want to do. And we're so diverse and so different. I just love exploring the differences. So I think that is a superpower because that enables me to connect with people in non-traditional ways and just across the world, around the world. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Before you go, and I recognize you're an extraordinarily busy woman, will you take a minute and just tell everyone how they can learn more about your work, both as an epidemiologist and your podcast and your blog, and then tell people how they can connect with you personally?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm on most social media as Dr. C.H. Huntley. And that's DrChHuntley. The easiest way to connect with me really is to go to my website, which is drchuntley.com. And you can connect with me on all social media. Links are there. You can send me an email message through my website. You can find out about the podcast and some of the consulting projects and other things that I do. All is at the website.
Fantastic. Well, again, Charlotte, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We wish you every success in changing the world.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Awesome.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
At goodcrowd.school, 5% of what you pay to learn how to make a difference goes to nonprofits working to eradicate extreme poverty, improve global health, and reverse climate change by 2045. So when you take a course to learn how to change the world, you do change the world. Get started at goodcrowd.school today. Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mark on the World show, the Social Impact Podcast. Please subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify.